it's kind of weird because Jake Paul is extremely bigger than Tank. Yeah, I mean, but with it being exhibition, it makes sense.
I'm gonna start like this. First of all, if you're a boxer and you're not taking note or notice of what Jake Paul is doing, you're worried about criticizing his boxing skills, then you're the fool.
Jake Paul versus Tank Davis. They just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135 pounder going up against a 200 pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big.
When Jake Paul, the YouTuber turned boxer, collides with Gervonta Tank Davis, anticipation runs wild. Davis brings explosive knockout power, elite speed, and proven experience against world-class opponents. Paul, however, carries size advantages, reach, and the reputation of shocking doubters. Many boxing legends predict Davis will dismantle Paul with his trademark precision and relentless movement. Yet some argue Paul's ability to defy expectations and use his physical tools could flip the script. This clash isn't just hype, it's a battle where dominance meets unpredictability, making it boxing's most intriguing gamble.
You know what? Fair play. If he does go out and fight Anthony Joshua, which I wouldn't advise because that would be extremely dangerous, then fair play if he was to do that. And all the critics and people like myself would have to shut the hell up because I always said he's looking for fights that were manufactured, looking for fights that were predetermined. And by that, I don't mean fake fights. I don't mean fixed fights. I mean fights where the odds are so stacked in his favor that, of course, he's going to win. And, of course, we see this, the latest match that's going to go down November 14th at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia. Jake Paul is taking on, you've seen it by now, Gervonta Tank Davis. A man that is a lightweight in boxing. Now, lightweight in MMA is 155 pounds. Lightweight in boxing, 135 pounds. Jake Paul, I think when he weighed in for Mike Tyson, was 227 pounds.
Official weight, 227.2 pounds.
That is, if I'm not mistaken, a 92-pound weight difference. Almost a 100-pound weight difference. It's insane. Let's say he comes in at 200 pounds. Still a 65-pound weight advantage, which is absolutely ridiculous. How can you be out there claiming to want to fight the best people on the planet and then going out there and taking on a guy that is maybe 92 pounds heavier, that is at least 65 pounds heavier than you? That is called one thing. That's called being a bully. It was bad enough when he fought Mike Tyson, a man that was 58 years old, and he was walking around like, I just beat the man on the planet. I just destroyed Mike Tyson and went out there and I beat him, and him and his brother are all celebrating and shit like that. It's like, dude, what are you doing?
The highly anticipated clash has shifted locations. Originally planned for Atlanta, Jake Paul will now meet Gervonta Tank Davis on November 14th at the Casa Center in Miami. MVP Promotions confirmed the change on Twitter, declaring, "The war is no longer in Atlanta. Same date, same fight, new city." The bout will stream worldwide on Netflix, adding to its global buzz. Officially labeled an exhibition, the fight still draws massive attention, fueled by the dramatic size gap between the two stars. Paul, who weighed 199.4 pounds in his most recent cruiserweight bout, towers over Davis, who has been competing at around 135 pounds. Because of this weight disparity, Davis's WBA lightweight title will not be on the line. Regardless, the matchup pits Paul's size and power against Tank's speed and skill, making it one of the sport's most unusual and talked about showdowns.
Boxing fans are losing their minds over this Jake Paul versus Tank Davis fight. And honestly, can you blame them? Why did Tank agree to this? I mean, look at the graphic. Jake is 6'1", 199 pounds with a 6'4" wingspan. Tank, 5'5", 133 pounds, 5'7" wingspan. Tank fighting me would be a fairer matchup. We're basically the same size. And you wonder why fans think Jake's fights are rigged? Because every time we see some nonsense like this, it feels like WWE with boxing gloves. Here's the kicker, though. Jake threatened to sue anyone who calls his fights rigged. Yeah, the same guy who preaches freedom of speech now wants to ban opinions. After that clown show with Mike Tyson that left everyone scratching their heads. Maybe, and I'm just throwing it out there, if your own management company wasn't promoting and sponsoring your fights, fans might actually believe what they're watching. Until then, don't be mad that people are skeptical. Be mad that your boxing career looks more like a scripted reality TV show.
The exact terms of the matchup remain uncertain, with no confirmed contract weight, round length, or clarity on whether it follows full professional rules. This uncertainty has sparked intense debate across the boxing world. Critics argue it leans more toward spectacle than sport, framing it as a crossover event rather than a legitimate title bout. Questions of fairness, safety, and respect for boxing's traditional weight class system continue to dominate discussions surrounding this polarizing showdown.
Hank is not the guy that knows how to sell a fight. Hank cannot sell a fight in his own division. The Paul brothers, and they come over to boxing. Their idea from day one is we don't have the skills or the experience. What we're going to do is we'll take on the absolute best guys, but they're going to spot us some pounds. Hank has one job, that it doesn't make any difference. Boxing is a real sport. My skills versus your skills, of which I am an abundance of and of which you have none of. Hank is telling anybody that will listen that there's a size problem. My skills and my experience in boxing, I do not have to wonder who's in the bar tonight. Any bar I go to, I rule the bar. No, it turns out that you don't. Just need some big guy to corner you, apparently. Boxing has never stood its ground. Boxing has never been able to explain why Floyd needed a half hour to get rid of a guy who's never boxed before. Hank Davis already began this. When you choose a dum-dum, don't be surprised when he goes out and acts like a dum-dum.
Terence Crawford has voiced clear skepticism about the upcoming clash between Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis, pointing directly to the massive size difference. In Crawford's view, the bout is less a legitimate contest and more a spectacle, something closer to a glorified sparring session than a true professional fight. He respects Davis's explosive skills and elite boxing pedigree, but warns that Paul's larger frame could prove dangerous if he lands a clean shot. Even so, Crawford doubts the fight will be conducted under standard professional terms, stressing that the weight disparity strips the matchup of fairness. For him, the legitimacy of calling this a battle between equals simply doesn't hold, regardless of the excitement surrounding it.
Jake Paul versus Tank Davis, they just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big. Tank ain't gonna be able to get in from that jab. Jake land one good punch on Tank, it's over.
Shakur Stevenson, still undefeated and widely respected, views the Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis showdown as a lopsided affair, largely due to Paul's size advantage. Despite that, Stevenson insists Davis has the tools to handle the challenge with ease. He highlights Tank's superior experience, sharp technical skills, and high-level ring IQ, believing those qualities will allow him to dictate the fight without much struggle. Stevenson predicts Davis will lean on movement, precision, and clean boxing fundamentals rather than trying to overpower the bigger man. In his eyes, Paul lacks the refinement needed to deal with Davis's speed and intelligence. Stevenson doesn't expect Tank to chase a knockout, but foresees a comfortable decision victory. Still, he criticizes the matchup as more spectacle than sport, calling it disrespectful to boxing. Yet he remains confident Davis is far above Paul in pure ability.
This case here, when you've got what is like a 70-pound difference between these two guys.
I mean, size will play some part of the fight, but if I'm thinking like I'm tanking, I'm probably just gonna go out there and try to outbox him and use my knowledge and IQ against him. So I can see Tank just outboxing him and making it real.
Is there any way any realistic or legitimate way in your mind you could see Jake Paul winning a fight against Tank?
No.
No way.
Nope.
Not a lot of people have talked about Jake and said he's got good power. Not even and I get anything could technically happen, but you don't even see a realistic shot where he could land one big punch and Tank being so much smaller, he just can't handle the power.
Nah, not at all. I think Tank is he's been boxing his whole life. He's been boxing since a kid, so I doubt like that's gonna be an issue or problem. I think Jake is good for where he's at, but I think it's just levels.
What do you think about the rumors of Tank and Jake Paul?
Man, Tank, disrespectful to the sport if he choose that over fighting with me. I'm the best fighter in the sport. I've been telling him that. He called cap on it. So if you gonna call cap and say I'm not who I say I am, come prove it. So I think it's dangerous for him to go back in there and fight Lamont. I think Lamont is a hell of a fighter. I can see that going left. So he better be on his A game.
Daniel Cormier approaches the Paul versus Davis spectacle with nuance. He respects Jake Paul for daring to face an opponent of Davis's caliber, acknowledging the risks and rewards involved. Yet, he criticizes the glaring weight differential, calling it difficult to see the fight as fair in traditional boxing terms. For Cormier, Davis is the clearly superior boxer in skill, experience, and pedigree, while Paul is staking his credibility on this gamble. He also notes how a loss would impact both fighters differently. Paul could see his growing reputation collapse, while Davis risks reputational damage if he falls to a much larger opponent. Still, Cormier leans toward Davis on merit, while admitting Paul's size makes the matchup unpredictable. Teofimo Lopez, however, frames it less as a battle of skill and more as a showcase driven by spectacle, money, and mainstream appeal. He insists that even an exhibition brings value by expanding boxing's reach to new audiences, comparing the event to larger-than-life moments like Floyd Mayweather's crossover ventures. Promoter Eddie Hearn echoes the financial upside but warns that this fight blurs the line between authentic boxing and entertainment. For him, it's less a competition than a business play, guaranteed to generate headlines and revenue. Other voices like Rolly Romero, Paulie Malignaggi, and many purists argue over legacy, risk, and credibility. Romero stresses Tank's legacy is already secure, while Malignaggi insists skill always outweighs size. Yet all agree the fight raises unusual stakes: size versus skill, spectacle versus sport. So what will matter most on November 14th? Paul's physical edge or Davis's experience and IQ? Drop your predictions in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video for more explosive boxing breakdowns.